This is hiring dwarves and transgender people to direct airplanes. That is nonsensical.
All right, Richard.
Whoa.
Piers Morgan had Cenk Uygur and a couple of other panelists on to talk about the tragic airline crash in D.C. with a Black Hawk helicopter and Trump's blaming of DEI for the crash. I'm going to have opinions to add in as we go along, and then I want to know what you think in the comments, but let's check it out together.
I want to turn to the plane crash. Cenk, I want to play a clip of President Trump talking about the appalling plane crash in Washington.
Point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so.
I've got to be honest, Cenk, before you respond to that, I did not like that. I didn't like that. I just felt like there's a time and a place to do that kind of stuff, and it's not in the immediate aftermath of a terrible crash with so many people killed, and before you really know anything about what's happened. Now, it may well turn out, as often with Trump, that a lot of the stuff he's talking about, in some way, that there will be merit to the argument. But I just felt the timing, to me, was wrong. That if you're president of the United States and 60-odd people plus the people on board the helicopter, if they've all died in a horrific crash, actually your job in that moment is to be comforter in chief, not blamer in chief.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. First off, yes, I know the program that he's referring to, and it doesn't help our side to deny reality. So there was a terrible DEI or diversity program about a decade ago, and it did absurd things like give you extra points if science was your worst class, right? So it was absurd. But that's been gone for over a decade now. And coming right out of the crash, when you start blaming DEI, what you're saying to your base is, oh, I'm not going to look into what went wrong here. Was it the plane? Was it the helicopter? Why was it the miscommunication? Overstaffing, understaffing. Overstaffing is not an issue, but understaffing, etc. Right? You're coming out and going, minorities did it, and that's a terrible look. And you could say, hey, you know what, Cenk, you just told us that there were some DEI abuses. That's right, and that's part of why they won the election. But if you then swing the pendulum so far that you blame minorities after every single incident, which is basically what looks like it's happening right now, you're going to turn off the country. You certainly turned me off. So, and then they realize, oh wait, black voters are coming towards us, so that's a bad idea. So Jesse Waters goes on Fox News and goes, well, okay, it wasn't black people, it was dwarves, the deaf, and transgender people. You didn't even investigate anything yet, and you're blaming dwarves? It's absurd, and it's going to have the pendulum swing back against you, and the American people are going to go, I'm tired of you blaming minorities and women and dwarves for everything. This is absurd.
Cenk Uygur has been catching a lot of heat recently for, well, you can watch all kinds of other videos about that, but I have to agree with him 100% on this one.
Okay, Natalie?
Well, look, I think that the American people have gotten tired of the inability to be able to just call a spade, which is that prioritizing the hiring of people. Sure, maybe it was 10 years ago, but the Obama administration directly changed in 2013 the FAA hiring procedures to shift away from actual merit-based standardized testing, accredited institutions, to favor more, cushy biodata metrics because people grew up in a difficult household or had a certain skin color. And you know what? There's lasting ramifications from that. And I think for so long, the American people have been called out as racist or sexist or homophobic or whatever for calling it out. But in reality, that's what the status quo is in terms of who people are hiring. And to say that people can't call it out for what it is, I think is just a continual version of that gaslight. There's serious issues going on. And I think that in industries like the FAA, things that have absolutely nothing to do with identity or anything related to ad hominem attacks on people, that the American people are tired. And that's why people elected President Trump, because he calls it out for what it is. I mean, this is not just run-of-the-mill DEI. This is hiring dwarves and transgender people to direct airplanes. That is nonsensical.
All right, Richard.
Whoa. Natalie, I have a question for you, right? I have a question for you. Do you, forgive me, Piers,
Sure.
but
No, please.
I know a thing or two about doing this. Do you believe that any of those people, the mentally challenged, the dwarfs, any of those people that were substandard, in his view, were being employed under that policy for the purpose of being an air traffic controller? Not an administrator, not an assistant.
The fact that you can even ask me a question if the United States is hiring dwarves and mentally challenged people to direct air traffic, I think sort of proves that we're in a bit of a sticky situation.
No, with respect,
obviously, they're still investigating it. But what I'm saying is that if the hiring process has been shifted not to be merit-based, then yeah, I think that's worth looking into, and I think we should investigate it. But I can still call it out for what it is. There's still systemic issues going on with FAI hiring policies and procedures. If the fact that you can actually ask me if a dwarf would have been in the control tower, I don't know. People who are mentally challenged, they're probably not capable of doing that job. So I would like to live in a country where you don't have to worry about those people being in a control tower and you can't even ask me a question like that.
Those people, dwarves, the mentally challenged.
Okay. Except when you are looking at a plane crash, the normal standard of doing this is you say, let us find the facts first. Now, with respect, I do have some more experience of this than most people. I've covered every major plane crash since Lockerbie. And Piers, you'll remember, of course, MH370.
My last 7 weeks on air at CNN, when I was your colleague, every night we did the missing plane, and you were my go-to expert.
You put in the domain those areas that maybe the public needed to think about, i.e. air traffic control, complexity, Reagan National, the flight paths. What you don't do is speculate. Rampant speculation. And that's what the president did. And to use his exact words, I have some thoughts and opinions on this. That, by any standard, is what you don't do. You let the NTSB, as indeed we heard from the NTSB, we heard from her, the chair, say, let us get on with this. But no, he put in the domain a load of stuff that may be relevant in the future, but it's not the position of the president to say, hey, let's have a speculation game.
I mean, it's interesting because...
That's my problem.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, going back to the missing plane back in 2014, when CNN went wall to wall on this story about what had happened to this plane, and you and I were together every night debating, we did a lot of speculating. I mean, let's be honest, we had a lot of people on who just speculated. Nobody knew what the hell had happened to this thing. We were blaming anyone we could think of each night, trying to make the story. I mean, I felt that we were just trying to string the story out as much as we could because it was doing big ratings. But there was a lot of speculation going on. I think the question I had...
Inappropriate speculation in many cases.
Yeah, but my point is the media do that a lot, I think, on these plane stories. What Trump was doing, I mean, it's whether the President of the United States should be doing it and whether he should be airing theories which may in the end turn out to be completely lacking in any connection to what happened here. We just don't know yet. I think that's a valid point. But I think that he would probably say, look, every time there's one of these things happening, I turn on the media and there's everyone just speculating. Why shouldn't I? And people will nod away and go, he's got a point.
You know the answer to that because he is the head of the executive. He's the head of the assistant. He is supposed to follow the gold standard, if you will. And the gold standard is investigators are... Otherwise, the NTSB chair would do the same, and she didn't.
I would also point out President Trump said these comments while giving a press briefing in the James Brady press briefing room. It wasn't like he was saying it in a capacity where he couldn't be challenged.
No, but let me ask you, Natalie. Natalie, let me ask you this. Natalie, let me ask you this. I felt for the first half of it, he was absolutely on point and he said all the right things. But if you were, for example, if you knew somebody on the plane or the helicopter a family member, a friend, a work colleague, whoever it may be, how would you honestly have felt? Just be honest about what he then went into the line he then took, where he was just having a go at Biden, having a go at Obama, having a go about DEI, all these things. I mean, I don't know about you, but I just felt on a human level, my criticism would have been wrong timing. Just don't do it there. Not the first time
I
the
think
president
I would
talks
have
about
been
it.
infinitely more upset and more critical of the FAA and hiring policies and procedures that allowed for that crash to happen.
Yeah, but you don't actually. But that's the point.
You
Natalie,
don't know that.
No, but hang on, Natalie. You don't. Here's the point, Natalie. You have no idea why that crash happened. None of us do. So when you say that, you're justifying what President Trump did, but you don't know any more than he did in that moment about what's happened here. We just have no idea. It could have been anything.
He did not directly outright blame it on DEI in the same way that when we talked about COVID origin.
Go back and read the transcript.
Or simply refer to the clip previously shown in the program.
Go back.
Yeah, he did.
Go back
There's
and read the
compounding
transcript.
factors. Decades of hiring unqualified people or less qualified people is going to lead to less qualified people running, as they call them.
But if I've been him, honestly, Cenk, if I'd been President Trump, if I had already found out, and I don't know if he knew this in the moment or not, if I had found out that, for example, in that air traffic control room, normally at that time of night, there is somebody managing the helicopters and somebody managing the planes, and in that particular moment on that night, one person was doing both jobs. That fact alone, and I'll come to Richard for your more expert view of that, but that fact alone raises massive alarm bells, and it plays to the general agreed feeling about this from all sides that air traffic control is under real pressure in terms of staffing. So, and that, it seems to me, might well turn out to be the most likely thing here, rather than DEI, which is a separate issue. I mean, I honestly, I hate DEI. I think it's become an awful thing that has been misused, mischaracterized, and actually abused in a way which has promoted mediocrity over meritocracy, and I hate that. So just for the record, DEI sucks, just generally as a concept, I think. However, there's no evidence DEI played any part here, but there is clear evidence now emerging of understaffing and potentially critical understaffing, where one person was doing two jobs on a busy night.
And that's exactly what happened.
So,
in a sense.
Right, Richard, I'll come to you in one sec. Just get Cenk to respond to that.
Yeah, so listen, as we speculate as to what is more likely, I have dwarves as less likely. I have understaffing as far, far, far more likely. And so what happened here is that Congress, by the way, and almost no one's talking about this, and I'll tell you why in a second, ordered 50 more routes at an already incredibly crowded airway at Reagan National Airport. And that's because they wanted direct flights back to their states and districts, and let's be honest, probably their donors. So did they then increase the air traffic controllers at Reagan? No, they refused to fund that, but they said, you have to give us our direct flights. So that's the first place I would look for as to what went wrong, because we definitely had understaffing. And if I'm a family member of someone who died, and someone's doing nonsense talk about dwarves and transgender people, instead of trying to figure out why my family member died and to make sure that we prevent that from happening again, I would be furious. But why don't people talk about that? Well, because Republican and Democratic politicians voted that way. So it's not easy to say it's Trump's fault, it's DEI's fault, so it doesn't fall into the normal political and cultural wars. And one last thing on this, Piers. Look, Trump's greatest strength and weakness is the same thing, marketing. So when we were talking about earlier, he comes in, it's the same economy, he pretends that it changed overnight and went from terrible to amazing, but he beats his chest and marketing, and it works, and the Democrats never ever defend themselves, can't make their case if they're life dependent. But on the other hand, Trump always takes it too far. And so here he comes in and goes, oh, all these people died. It's a great advantage to use my talking points against DEI. No, it isn't, brother. And it's really sad for those families and disturbing that you're using them for a political tactic, and it's really
would actually be
terrible.
It would be genuinely hilarious if it turned out you were Donald Trump's brother, just for the record. Let me bring Richard in here.
Well, let's end it there on that hilarious joke. So, what strikes me about this is just the cruelty. Of course, Trump takes every opportunity to blame what he sees as his adversaries, or, everything's an opportunity. He doesn't care about these poor victims. It's the same playbook that it has always been. And what flabbergasts me is that everybody, whatever side of the political spectrum they're on, seems to keep giving him credit for caring in a way that he's never shown any evidence of even having the capacity to do. Let me know what you all think in the comments.